First of all, thank you everyone for coming. Great to see so many people.
You made it.
That's all right, grab a seat. First of all, we have some 10X staffers who will probably take a couple of pictures for social. Is that a problem? Sorry, you're not supposed to be somewhere else or anything like that? No? Cool. Right, so initial intros. Thank you for coming to 10X. Thank you to the company who employed me for hosting tonight. For those of you who don't know, we're a fintech company based in the UK with a worldwide presence, and we provide banking platforms and services to other banks or to banks themselves. I'm sure that none of you, unfortunately, are customers, at least not directly, but maybe indirectly. And obviously, thank you very much to DataJar for the food and the drink today. Not that you're probably hungry and sober, so we'll go with that. So we thought we'd don't tell me. We're doing a London App Admins organiser special as part of the WWDC, where each can take a stab at various sections of this. So hopefully it goes well. We've also got one massive slide deck, so we'll see how that goes as well. So first of all, I believe it's Neil. So I'll hand over to Neil.
The operate slides manually.
Sorry.
Lucky me, I get the easy stuff.
Technology.
Does anyone know how to work a computer?
Sorry, we have some white.
Try turning it off and on again.
Bear with me.
That's what he's doing. Has someone tried to make it too clever?
Yes, that is exactly what's happened. Oh, spoilers.
There we go. So I think I get the fun bit at the beginning. I'll try not to keep you because all the interesting meaty stuff's coming up after me. So what's new? WWDC 2023, otherwise known as the new shiny. What do we have? So Apple made a number of announcements. We'll just go over them a little bit. First up, the Vision Pro, the new headset. Who's getting one? Who could afford one?
Fintech startup.
We need some dev units. Yeah.
Well,
I thought I'd just post the hardware specs on it because they're quite impressive, aren't they? You've got an M2 inside and this new chip called an R1, which apparently is responsible for processing all the real-time data coming from the sensors. I won't say too much more about it. I'm not that interested in it. Computers as well. I don't know if you see the small text there. They introduced 3 new Macs. We've got a new M2 MacBook Air. You can configure up to 24 gigs of RAM, 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU. New M2 Max and Ultra Mac Studio, 192 gigabytes of RAM. What? And
It's still not the 1.5 terabytes you get.
Mental, isn't it? And then the new Mac Pro Ultra as well, 76-core GPU. You should imagine what that could do.
Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
No, because it won't run.
Lots and lots of ports on it. You get 8 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 2 lots of 10 gig Ethernet, etc. But it's just a Intel Mac Pro case, isn't it? But with the tiny little M2 system on a chip inside it. There we go. But I mean, the feature I like most that's common to all 3 of them is they keep the headphone jack. Why not? Where I refer to my notes now. New operating system goodness. Oh, that's disappeared. So we had macOS 14 Sonoma. That's how it's pronounced, isn't it? You can tell I didn't watch the presentation.
Sonoma.
You got video screensavers that become your desktop wallpaper when you come out of them. Very nice, shiny. You can drag widgets from Control Center your desktop, and then stay there, and you can interact with them. Got game mode, which prioritizes all your CPU time and Bluetooth connectivity when you're running games. It increases latency, decreases your latency. I've had a week. So you get lower latency with your AirPods. It doubles the Bluetooth sampling rate for your input devices as well. So your Xbox controllers and things like that can be more responsive, apparently. Some video conferencing changes as well. They introduce this thing called presenter overlay and reactions. So I don't know if you've ever watched those gamer videos on YouTube where you've got someone's kind of head, part of their body superimposed on the game. All that stuff comes to video conferencing, and this is all available to third-party apps like Zoom, WebEx, Teams, work in those. Safari's got some changes as well. You can have private browsing windows lock, go away. There's some sharing enhancements as well with your passkeys and passwords. I think you can share them with other users, and changes that you make share with them as well. So it's not just a one-time share the thing as it is and they get a copy of it. It's synced, which is quite nice. They introduce profiles, so you get separate bookmarks, separate extensions. So you can have a work profile, personal profile, whatever else profile.
Oh yeah, I get where you're going.
Private.
Started there.
And you've got web clips, web apps. It'd be interesting to see what they look like in India if they do come to India. That'd be quite nice. Don't confuse the two. One announcement I saw today again, which is on the slides with Sonoma as well, and Safari. I believe is password manager that comes with macOS is now available in all different browsers as well.
Yep.
I think quite good.
Oh, cool. Fun.
We've got iOS 17. Some enhancements to the phone app. You get contact posters now in calls. So instead of just a contact picture, you have a contact poster, which is a whole thing with the background, text, graphics, the whole thing. You can have that for your different contacts. Things like live voicemail coming to the phone app as well. So when people talk to you, so when people phone up, if you don't want to answer the call and it goes to voicemail, you start seeing a transcription appear on the screen, which is pretty cool. And you can answer the phone while they're doing voicemail if you want to, so you can pick it up and take the call. So it does all that speech to text. FaceTime is also going to have the option of people leaving a message if they don't answer the call as well. Messages now include some really good search filtering options, so you can find stuff more easily. There's a catch-up button in messages as well, takes you to the last read one. Swipe to reply. Voice messages that come through in Messages app are now going to be speech to text transcribed. And inline location, I can't remember why I wrote that, what it means. Messages also include there's a new enhancement as well called check-in, which can, if you set it up, say with family, friends, loved ones, it can notify them when you get home, or if you're on your way and you're delayed, that kind of thing. It can share your location if you don't respond to them, if someone's trying to call you. And it can also share your battery status, and also if your mobile phone service provider's got signal. They've got some enhancements to stickers in messages as well. So essentially all the emojis and things you put into messages are now stickers. So you drag them in, you can move them around, resize them, etc. Photos can become stickers. Videos can. Everything can become a sticker. Stickers are also going to be available in other apps as well. So you can use them wherever you want. Some enhancements to AirDrop as well. Lots of proximity-based sharing stuff. So when you bring your phone close to someone else's phone, or your watch, in some cases as well, some new stuff happens. A feature called Name Drop. to share contacts or to share your contact information with others, which is quite nice. You've got the facilities when you're sending a file over AirDrop, if you go out of range of the other person's device, carry on sending over the internet and use all your mobile data. That's good. SharePlay also will support proximity-based sharing, so touch the devices to share the same content in the same way. Autocorrect has got a level of AI in it, the sentence, sentence level. Apparently, that's not going to be a thing anymore. Oh. For duck's sake.
Come at the family messages really harsh.
A new app called Journal was introduced. So for the mindful stoics amongst us who like to write down our daily experiences, for better mental health and that stuff, it's going to be really nice. We've got now a feature called Standby. So when you put your phone on charge, it can become a nice kind of nightstand clock. We'll show photos and widgets and things like that, which is really good. Siri now responds to just saying Siri, and not the other way of saying it.
What's the other way?
The Photos app, the AI in the Photos app can now apparently recognise your pets as well as your pets, like it does for people. Offline maps. So, you know, when you're out hiking in the Himalayas or somewhere there's no signal. iPad OS 17. So you got most of the changes in iOS 17 and some other stuff coming to iPad OS 17. They first announced Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro are now coming to the iPad. I don't know how that's going to work for VPP because they're subscription-based apps.
Probably won't.
Yeah, no news on it yet. So there we go. Widgets are going to work more like apps. You can interact with them a lot more than you can at the moment. Customizable lock screens like you have on the iPhone are now coming to iPad OS 2. There's some enhancements to the, well, actually there is the health app, I should say. That wasn't on iPad before, now it is, and all the features of health are coming to iPad as well, so it can be used in the same way as it does on your phone. They've made some enhancements to how you work with PDFs. Essentially, you can fill in a PDF form, even if it's not a PDF form. And by that, I mean, if I take a scan of a document, save it as a PDF and it's got fields on it, the AI knows that they're form fields. It's quite nice, and you can do markup and fill it in. So that's pretty cool. And then there's some collaboration, live collaboration options if you work with PDFs in the Notes app as well. Other people, they see your changes in real time, which looks really cool. You can also use the camera on an external display that you connect to your iPad to take calls.
Very fancy.
And new on the watch. Widgets are new on the watch. So you would put your watch up and you'd rotate the crown and you'd see widgets at the top. So they would come down. One of the new widgets is smart stacks like you've got on the iPhone as well. So you can just put loads of widgets into one. Scroll down. Got a couple of new faces as well. One called Palette, which is nice and very colourful. And this is a lovely one. You got Snoopy in the Woodstock. Cool. They've put some enhancements for those of us who like to work out with some of the cycling stuff and hiking stuff. Cycling enhancements connect to various sensors that connect to your bike. And it displays more metrics about how much power your legs are generating, things like that. Hiking, some enhancements to your compass, and things like it will show you the last area that you had the phone signal in. So you can navigate back to it if you need to, which is quite cool. Topography is coming to maps as well. It's part of the hiking enhancements. So if you don't know what topography is, it's just the height of the ground that you're on, so you can see, you know, whether you're climbing a mountain or not.
So you can walk off a cliff.
Yeah. Some enhancements to health on the watch as well. They're putting in some stuff to help people with their mental health. Ways to log various emotional states very quickly and easily. There's going to be some sort of mental health surveys that are coming out, I think it's already that, based on some sort of standardized tests that are out there, but you can answer them and it will give you some advice on those, or insights into various mental health conditions or states as well. And also they're looking at people's eye health as well, with a focus on myopia, short-sightedness, because we look at our screens a lot. Get used to it. And nice feature is you can watch your FaceTime videos on your watch. And all the other stuff, including tvOS. They've had a bit of a UI redesign in tvOS. Control center looks totally different. That's what I'll say about that. The Siri remote can now show up in Find My. Down the side of the sofa. And I think what's the chip, W1 or whatever it's called, where you use your phone and go beep, 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 beep. It tells you where it is. That's going to work. FaceTime is going to use the camera from your iPhone or iPad as well. So your Apple TV, some FaceTime calls, have your phone in front of it, it's your camera. Quite cool. AirPods have got some enhancements as well, some adaptive audio stuff. So when you're out and about, they'll switch automatically between the transparency mode and noise cancelling, depending on what's going on, whether someone's trying to talk to you or whether you're trying to talk to someone else. Work it out and set the right mode for you. It'll also do the same with adjusting your volume level on the fly as well. AirPlay in hotels is now becoming a thing as well on Apple TV. And so is SharePlay or CarPlay. So you can have everyone in your car together fighting over who gets to play what on the radio. Some nice enhancements to Fitness Plus if you subscribe to it as well. Custom plans are coming to it, where it can essentially create a weekly workout schedule for you based, and you just say what days of the week you want to work out on.
Brilliant.
You're going to link
That is brilliant. I wanted something like that in Fitness Plus since I started using it.
So I want to do strength 3 times a week.
Yeah,
half an hour a day.
cool. Every day.
We'll come up with suggestions for you, and it'll be instead of having to find one every day. There's going to be some audio changes in there as well. You can balance between the trainer's audio and music.
Oh, good.
What you want to hear more of.
That was sometimes quite crap.
And you can stack up your workouts as well, so you can do more than one without actually having to start a new one after you finish this one. It will just say, I want to do that one, that one, that one, and it will just go one from one to the other.
Yeah. I'm going to get even fitter.
You didn't know, Daz.
That's me done.
Actually, almost on schedule.
That's pretty
That's amazing.
1 minute.
2 minutes over. Wow.
Thank you, Neil. Just a heads up, the microphones in here are good. They're probably too good, if anything, and it picks up sound around the whole room. So just be aware of that. And we are being live streamed. Just be aware of that. So thank you very much, Neil. Next up, Steve. With what's coming up next.
Okay, so the microphones are really good. So I won't say no, it's fine.
Lucky.
No, well, exactly that.
Just how good they are.
So I know. So I grabbed the what's new with managing macOS. And if I'm honest, I think it's because I watched the keynote and went, there wasn't that much. This will be really easy. I'll leave Daz and and Neil and Ben to do the really hard work. That'll be awesome. And I checked in like the Slack channel and stuff. I can do this, right? But it turns out that I guess I'll just sit there. No, all right, no. But it turns out. Look at him. It turns out that when I realised I actually had a talk to present, there is quite a lot that's new, annoyingly. So I guess let's run through it. And I think the focus is on, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'll have missed things, but I thought I'd focus on what's new with managing macOS, and we'll see where we get to. So I guess we'll start off. There's a whole bunch of improvements with automated device enrollment, or I'm going to still call it DP, sorry. Whatever I'm supposed to call it has improvement. So we can now enforce file vault during the setup assistant, which is nice. you can enforce or require a minimum version of macOS during enrollment, which I was incredibly excited for. I think I was at this Apple event the other day, I asked, and they said Sonoma only, and I went, that's brilliant, yeah, fantastic. That's awesome, because I don't have a problem with endless devices that are reset from the, they go for repair and they come up with Catalina, so that's great. But anyway, but in our new Sonoma world, it will be awesome. Well, it will be awesome. It will be awesome.
Makes them update, doesn't it?
But it will on Sonoma. I can demand a specific version unless it's got an RSL, probably. Who knows? Also, excitingly, again, for somebody who's exciting, first-party support for other IDPs. So it supports OIDC and Skin. So I know Tom Bridge will be very excited about that. And we're Okta customers where I work, and Okta are going to have first-party support, really. So that's hugely exciting in all sorts of ways. I'm less fussed about rolling out managed Apple IDs to my whole user base, but actually what's scary right now is that because there's no SSO that I can use, I've got a whole bunch of people with admin rights in Apple Business Manager and no real way of managing that life cycle. So I'm hugely excited for that. That's a really nice feature. So what we're saying anyway, these improvements, so now a device can't enroll unless it's running Sonoma, you need to be happy with that security posture, and that's great. But if the end user somehow manages to skip an automated enrollment, which never happens, hey, look, we have a naggy nag. So the new nag in Sonoma, you used to get the little pop-up, it now runs full screen. So I guess you can't pretend you didn't see it. If you click on that Not Now button, you get an 8-hour window apparently, and it'll jump out, come and get you again. But also, once it's been triggered, there is now a little button sitting waiting for you in system preferences, so you can trigger it at a time to suit you. So, sorry, system settings, my mistake. It's fine. It's fine. And this is why I love you all.
It's too much Catalina, that's the trouble.
Oh, yeah. But this is cool. So you can undo this at a time to suit you, right? So you get nag, now's not the time, but you can do it before you go to lunch or whatever. It's all good. Who else? Oh yes, tangentially as well. We've also got tiny little things, but in an Apple Business Manager sense, there is now scope when you use Configurator on your phone. You drop the device into your production or whichever group you wanted to go in, and not that added by a configurator group, which then isn't very useful. So that's kind of a nice feature around Apple Business Manager as well. So who could want more than that? Well, there is more. So Cyrus is, I'm a big fan of Cyrus. The problem with Cyrus is I've tried to watch this session 3 or 4 times now, but he has a very sort of soporific voice. It's quite calming, and I start to struggle to follow it all the way to the end. But I think I'm going to distill some of the important bits. So basically, declarative management, it comes to macOS. And if you've seen this session, he opens with software patching. Because apparently it's not working. Who knew? So
all of us,
apart from all of us. So the suggestion is you can now send, a required OS version or build version and a due date. So you deliver that to your MDM provider, provided it supports declarative device management, of course. And then what will happen is the user gets notified. As you get to 24 hours towards the update, DND gets turned off, so do not disturb. So they actually get disturbed, and then if they ignore it completely, then the MDM commands will kick in and sort of force an upgrade. And if we've tested those, we all know how well those work. So as here's hoping you've saved that spreadsheet you were working on, kids. So this is really exciting and sounds really familiar somehow. Anyway, but also yes. So what else we got? So also this declarative device management also adds scope to manage a whole bunch of system settings, so SSHD, sudo, PAM cups. So the idea is the logic is now pushed down to the device. So the device can sort of smartly apply settings. So rather than everything being an endless sort of push from an MDM server, the MDM server says, don't let Steve SSH in, and it will maintain that setting. So that's kind of cool. What else?
On some of those deprecated.
What are you talking about? This is from Apple's own documents. So fresh the words
One in the middle.
from Tim himself. But this came from the documents from Tim himself. It's fine. Another update to declarative MDM is the status channel. So this is a new declarative MDM feature, and it allows us for better feedback around software updates. So you'll get more verbose reasons why it didn't work. I didn't mean to be mean. It's just you get full feedback now. Like the battery's flat, They can be bothered, it doesn't work. All good. So it will also work and Declarative will also work with your existing MDM profile. So like it sort of works in parallel. So it's a new system of managing. I think the status channel can also take information about running background processes and services. And if memory serves it, it'll actually, this is where changes will get pinged. So if somebody turns a setting off or installs a new app, it'll ping back to your MDM apparently. We'll see. There are new features with apps, which I've clearly written 3 times. So basically, it will now manage, you can manage and install App Store apps and custom apps. And apparently you can install app bundles now, and the MDM continues, it has the ability to manage them going forward. So dangerously steps towards something useful for app management. Also, this is nice. So there's more granular management in system settings. So I guess in the dark days, we would hide whole panes in system settings. And then the way it works now is no one can find anything in the new app anyway. But if you are managing a setting, Apple now gives you a helpful message saying, the reason why you can't toggle this setting is because it's now configured by a profile. And that's a bit more granular, and end users get sort of full transparency as to why they can't do the thing, which is, I think is a really nice improvement, because just blanket hiding a whole pane was a bit brutal.
Is there an explanation as to why you can't find it?
Well, I can't find it because I can't work macOS. But I'm still really confused by platform SSO. My point is that, you know, we do one-to-one deployments, and I'm not sure I do want my end users synchronizing their daily password with the password they use for all their important cloud apps or important things. But whilst we're talking about managing, what's new with managing macOS, what is interesting is they talk about the idea that you can take groups from the IDP to manage admin access. So the suggestion is all of a sudden you could potentially grant your help desk or other sort of tech support folk the ability to do admin things, unlock panes and stuff like that, without creating a local admin account on the device. So I think there is, I remember tinkering with things like that in the AD era, and it was messy, but I can see that being a huge boon actually for helping with device management. Similarly, I guess there's the notion that you can create users on the fly. So potentially for those sort of mixed environments, where you have teaching lab environments, this might be the beginning of the end for AD, but maybe not till macOS 15.
Intro.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So, and I was going through that. This is the one that hit me the hardest, actually. So, a million years ago, I locked myself out on my very first Mac. So it was a Power Mac G3 that was rescued from a skip. So I locked myself out. I had no admin accounts left, and this is when I learned this awesome trick. Right, you go and delete. That sounds like clickbait, you know, lose loads of pounds with this one trick. But you go and delete this one file, right? And the Mac that reboots, and it asks you to create a new admin account. It's amazing. And it's saved so many people's bacon, and now it is dead. Officially dead. Apple is saying that you now use erase or contents and settings. That's your way to get back into the Mac you've locked yourself out of. Oops. So I'm kind of sad about that. So we've got more scope to restrict all the things. So these are the new restrictions we have. I believe that one's about adding, the first one's about adding additional Apple IDs. You can force hostname stuff. You can prevent people changing their startup disk. You can block Time Machine, and you can prevent or allow Touch ID. I think some of that is cool with iOS. I'm basically stealing Daz's thunder, sorry. And then again, I really didn't want to talk about this because it probably sits in another part of the presentation, and Ben's looking at me like it clearly is.
I have nothing now.
This is what I do. I'm mentioning it more because, again, at this event we were at with Apple, there was a whole bunch of discussion around managed Apple IDs. So Apple are talking about, in a future version of macOS, again, and iPadOS and iOS, which Daz will talk about, they're going to add restrictions that only apply to personal Apple IDs. And Apple were very clear to point out the other day that even though you've created it with your corporate ID, that is still very much a personal ID. And we all know that. And our end users really don't know that. They really do think, come on, I use my apps, 10x banking, it's clearly fine, it's not fine. And so it's really interesting that between the improvements with SSO and these new restrictions that will apply to personal Apple IDs, that clearly managed Apple IDs are going to be a thing we'll all be dealing with. I've been avoiding it for a very long time because I don't want to do it, but managed Apple IDs. And I think that's me done without treading on Ben's toes too much. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Oh, no.
Go back.
What was that?
Nothing, all right.
Am I on time? No, I'm even slightly under on.
Yes.
Cheers, Steve. That's the great information there. Just before we break for a little bit of a break. So, show of hands. Who knew there were dead wasps in figs?
I did 7 days ago.
Pigs weren't vegetarian juice around.
They're not vegan either. Not vegan or vegetarian, though.
High in protein, right?
Yeah, that's why.
A few days ago, we all learned a lesson. Actually, no. Yeah, 7 days ago, we all learned a lesson.
What's wrong with eating
Right. So we've got sort of 10, 15 minutes. Feel free to go grab some refreshments, go grab some more food. We'll get back here just for 8 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. So again, thanks to Data Star for the food and drink tonight. Inspired by them, keep you fed and watered appropriately. Shh. So you start with me now for the iOS side of things, and we'll see if it works. Sweet. So welcome to what's new in managing iOS and iPadOS, although it was still iOS to me, to be honest. This will cover things raised this year's WWDC. The updated OS version Apple will be releasing later this year. A few gifts in this one. So I split it into 3 areas: new features, improvements, key changes, and then some deprecations and changes Apple will make in a future OS. Nice and cryptic. So first of all, some new features and improvements. First thing is a return to service mode. Designed to speed up the process of resetting and redeploying devices. When wiping the device via MDM, you can also supply some Wi-Fi details and define which MDM server it will enroll into. That Wi-Fi profile is used for activation and enrollment, unless you're using something like one of those crazy Ethernet adapter things, in which case you don't deposit the Wi-Fi details. And also, if you have the device in Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager, you don't have to send it any details on the MDM server to enroll to. And what it will do with these details is, as soon as you wipe that device, it will then go through enrollment automatically. So quite a helpful thing if you're on a device is wireless, particularly, and you need to push a profile to it, it can pre-push those details down. So that makes things nice and happy, nice and easy, quite good for places where you might have a pool of iPads, say education. You can push out a remote wipe, it should sort itself out and then deposit stuff from home screen ready for the next kid to wipe their snotty fingers all over it.
Testing.
This will need some changes to MDM servers, so you won't be able to test it straight away, but that will tell you how quickly you can test it, adopt it, that kind of stuff. Next one, as we've heard already, similar to macOS, a minimum version of iOS or iPadOS for enrollment. So many institutions have a minimum OS for security reasons, maybe some sort of compatibility reasons, that kind of stuff. Always a pain in the ass when they enroll a device and it's on old S, and then you've got to spend a whole couple of hours updating things. Instead, you can specify a minimum OS. If the device doesn't meet it, then as part of the AD enrollment process, the user we talk through how to update or upgrade, apparently, to the minimum OS you specified. It does say upgrade. Obviously, this only applies to the new OSs coming out at the end of sort of autumn time. So we'll have to wait till next year to test the upgrade side of things. But quite a cool feature, saves a bit of time and effort on that one. Again, it's going to need MDM server changes, so you'll have to wait until whoever does the hard work there completes it. Third one. This one kind of fell under the interesting but not particularly useful for me personally, but was quite interesting, I suppose. So iOS 17, iPadOS 17 provides support for private data-only cellular networks on 5G or LTE. This allows some organizations to run their own 5G or LTE networks, not relying on any public providers out there. Typically, you're looking at, surprise, surprise, military, government, that kind of thing, emergency services. Although some larger businesses can have this sort of system kitted out. I kind of suspect Apple might have a specific customer or two in mind for this. Wouldn't surprise me. It's quite a weird feature otherwise for almost all of us, I would suggest. And as with all of the iOS stuff nowadays, you can configure it with eSIMs or an actual physical SIM, as you would do with a traditional cellular connection. Kind of partly related to this, I guess, but 5G network slicing. So it allows a network operator to customize traffic with different service requirements for latency, throughput, packet loss, and shove them at different networks. I think it's kind of a similar thing to what you get for a quality of service on a traditional network. But as I say, this was kind of very much in the bucket of interesting. Don't think I'm going to be using it personally, but it was kind of cool. But yeah, for example, maybe prioritizing video and voice traffic over, say, streaming or general downloads if they've got their own network oversubscribed or cell towers overused, that kind of thing. Right, and as you can imagine, thankfully, you can control some of these things with MDM. Apple really thought about this quite well. So you've got the controls as well as the features, rather than waiting maybe next OS for the features, sorry, for the controls. Again, use the private cellular network payload, and you can enable the use of a 5G standalone network, as you can imagine, essentially turn the thing on. But you can also do things like allow AirDrop and AirPlay to still work over a Wi-Fi connection, but force everything else over a 5G connection. So again, high security networks, some quite cool options. You've even got the ability to do geofence activation. So you can specify latitude, longitude, and a radius, and say within this area, we're going to our private 5G. Outside this area, do what you want. You can specify it to 1,000 geofences. So, you know, they've got some scope there. And again, you can manage the 5G slicing, as I mentioned a minute ago, but you can manage it for MDM. For those that will apply to, which I'm guessing is probably not anyone in the room, but if it is, you have to work with your private cellular connector or provider to work on that. One last sort of feature with this sort of stuff, you can now preserve eSIMs during passcode policy wipe. It's a feature I didn't really realise, but essentially if you put your passcode in wrong too many times and you have an eSIM, the device wipes itself, it also wipes the eSIM record. If you're not using eSIM, you're using a traditional SIM, obviously that still works. So there's now, it's not quite clear if it's a new default or whether it's, if you push it via MDM, there'll be an extra tick box. But essentially you can say, don't do that. Leave the eSIM intact. It's, I suppose, a double-edged sword, because if someone pinches the phone and wipes it, then they can get a phone with a data connection. But on the flip side, if they do that, you can maybe also then do like, put it back for ADE, start doing some fun games with that person who's nicked the phone, that kind of stuff.
Daz, was that only when the device is wiped when you've entered the credentials incorrect?
So according to documentation, it's if you put the lock key, the automatic wipe that happens if you put the passcode in wrong X amount of times. So you can set your phone up to say 10 wrong passcode attempts, wipe it.
But not through erasal content settings.
That wasn't, racial content settings wasn't specified for that.
That gives you the option anyway.
It's a good thing.
Okay, so it gives you the option already.
Yeah, I believe it.
Okay, so it's probably bringing that in line with the NDM wipe,
And the
which,
MDM wipe gives you the option as well.
yeah. Okay, so some sort of bring it a bit more sort of in line. Small note and some little deprecations in this area. The long-standing APN profile payload and cellular information from a device information MDM command. Those are going to be removed and replaced with this new cellular payload, as well as a new service subscriptions MDM command. For most of you running commercial or even a lot of open source MDM providers or variations of that, it's going to be something that gets implemented by someone else and provided to you rather than something you have to deal with. 802.1x support for Ethernet connections. Yes, I'm talking about iOS, iPadOS, and yes, I'm talking about Ethernet connections. There is a bit of a Frankenstein adapter. I think it's got a bit better nowadays, actually, but where you can have an Ethernet adapter into a powered USB hub into the iPad or iPhone and an Ethernet cable in the back of it and use that.
TVOS as well.
Not specified. It's my new phrase. Sorry, TVOS isn't specified in this, but it may well be the case. But essentially, you can add an 802.1x Ethernet configuration to those mobile devices, for want of a more unified term, I guess. Handy if you've got iOS devices on tethered networks and you have to try and manually do some weird jiggery pokery to get it to work, or make a load of exclusions for those devices. Last new thing, shared iPad. Not shared iPad, shared iPad enhancements, I should say. So initial sign-in. So MDM vendors can use a new key that makes an iPad wait until it's fully ready before presenting the user of the home screen. So this could be used to ensure that once the user's logged into a shared iPad, all the apps and the required settings, limitations, restrictions, blah, 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 are all installed before the user can start tapping and launching apps and doing things. Whereas at the moment, you tend to get dumped on the home screen and you start seeing apps loading in. MDM vendors also have a new option to skip the language and region setup on shared iPads, telling the device to use its own system settings, sort of overall system settings for those options. Basically means you're going to skip a few extra screens when a user logs into a shared iPad. Again, these tend to be used in education environments, so age ranges could be anything from very young to young at heart, should we say? Just skip some things. It's great if you use the same language and or region for all your shared iPad users. Sounds more like a bug fix, but quite helpful one on that one. Talk about bug fixes. So shared iPads I configure for temporary sessions. That's where you can kind of almost have like a guest log into the iPad that gets removed at logout. Those will now adhere to your quota size you set for those users. So you can't have someone, a guest person, jumping onto an iPad and just filling the hell out of it, and then you have to then wipe it. Temporary iPad as well. I mean, what the hell? So the Air Force One. What about some changes that I haven't kind of stuck into the first slides? So Mac's an activity key with iPhone and iPad enrolled by end users using user enrollment. So previously, you would set the auto lock, which is the maximum time a user can set a device to before it just locks by default, like if you just put it down the desk. Apparently, when you used user enrollment, you could set it to never, regardless of what you're pushing down, which isn't handy. Now it listens to that command, that kind of profile key. So if you say to user, okay, user enrollment on that device, we require that device auto locks within 1 minute of inactivity, it will now do it, and they can't change it to be never. Apparently some people have been doing it. Restrictions to tap to pay. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to read this one because it confused me a little bit and see if I'm the only one. So tap to pay screen lock was introduced in iOS 16.4 and allows a payment app running in the foreground to be used securely without providing anyone else your passcode or an unlocked device. Now, I'm wondering if that's something to do with, in the UK, you've got your Oyster card and the kind of the cardless payments, and sort of, what's the phrase for it? Transit card. So essentially, you set a device up. So you say, this card, I authorize to I can just wave it on the Oyster card machines, and it gives me through.
Doesn't need a thumbprint, you can just do it.
Doesn't need a thumbprint, doesn't need Face ID, doesn't need passcode, anything like that. I think that's what it means here.
Yeah.
Now, there's a new key for developers, tap to pay screen lock, that will require user authentication if they switch to another app. Yeah, that's the wordage used. So maybe it's something like, I know with some banking apps or finance apps, if you try and fast switch out of it and switch back to it, it requires you to reauth for a lot of them. Maybe it's something to do with that. All I can do is apologise because I've this one. Move forward. So, VPN configurations. There's a new key called Allow VPN Creation, and that can be used to prevent users and third-party apps from setting up VPNs on iPads or iPhones, or iPod Touches, I guess, if they're still supported. Sounds similar to how you would prevent those devices having configuration profiles installed outside of your MDM. In the past, I've heard of users, typically in education again, setting up and running their devices via VPNs to get around management controls, restrictions, that kind of stuff. So just a new option you've got, quite helpful. This one, again, is more of an MDM one. Installed application lists will only provide a couple of details now rather than all the details. Essentially, it sounds like if an MDM vendor doesn't specify what other options it wants, they'll just get a default set. And it sounds like it's something to do with reducing unneeded traffic or data between the device and the MDM server. It's something beyond my ken, shall we say? But I suspect that's why maybe MDM vendors have complained a lot. Maybe there's too much traffic going back. Just want a little bit of information. Quite an interesting one there. Last main change on my list, because I know it's getting a bit boring, is the device information MDM query. So this will now return a key called model number, as well as a more specific model key currently returned. From my digging I could do with this, it seems like currently when you ask for the model, it gives you iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, which is, you know, a little bit helpful. Not massively helpful, but a little bit helpful. Now, it sounds like model number will be things like iPhone 13, much like you get like a MacBook Pro 14,2, that kind of stuff. Right. Some depreciation and future changes. Deprecation, sorry. Supervision. So going to blast through this list because it is a bit dull, but it's worth noting. The following restrictions will require a supervised device in the future. I'm not sure how many of you actually manage iPad OS, iOS devices that aren't supervised, but if you do, these things are going to change. So as mentioned, these are things you will not be able to control without being supervised. Auto unlock, fingerprint unlock, I'm not going to read those. There, them ones. So if you're interested in controlling those, or in fact, these ones, you will need to have supervised devices. Like I said, nowadays, if you're fully managing iOS, iPad OS, I'd be surprised it's not supervised. It doesn't feel like a best practice. I don't know. I'm sure there's situations where it's not the case. But anyway, so this is an interesting thing that I know Steve's been chatting a little bit about as well. But in addition to this list, these restrictions that are about to come up will not only just apply to supervised devices, they'll only be applied to personal Apple IDs. So if you're using managed Apple IDs, you cannot control these things on the device. Reading between the lines, I assume that means that you'll be controlling those for other means, say business manager, school manager, you'll be controlling those Apple IDs through that mechanism. These are Cloud Photo Library, Cloud Document Sync, Activity Continuation, and Cloud Private Relay. So I suspect you may be, either those options are not available to managed Apple IDs or MAIDs, or you would control it through the portal that you currently would deal with MAIDs, which is business manager, school manager. Lastly, some final deprecations. These things are going away.
That stream's dead already.
It is indeed. Yeah, so the second one is dead as a service as of like a couple of weeks ago, last month, something like that.
26th of last month.
26th of last month. So this is, I guess, just cleaning up, so people can't complain. Well, you didn't tell me this. It's like, well, okay, disable PhotoStream, don't care, it doesn't exist. And the profile-based user enrollment. The idea with that is it's being replaced with using your managed Apple IDs and doing that kind of, what's the right term for that?
Just wait for the next one.
Just wait for the next one.
Wait for the next section.
Coming soon?
Next section.
Next section. Next section.
My bit.
Right, I thought I had an easy one with iOS. A lot of the changes are more MDM vendor-esque. There's some cool things in there, but yeah, I did get this vibe when I was doing this. Hence why I added a load of GIFs in as well. Enough for me. You got the last one. Over to you, sir. Right, like clicking buttons.
As Darren went over.
I started late for some reason.
Do you want to break 5 minutes, folks, or do you just want to carry on? Everyone has to carry on.
Back on.
You insist something else. So it's fine. Cool. So what's new with managing everything else? So we've gone through a number of topics today. What are the other things knocking about? Well, up until Steve's talk, up until Neil's talk, I completely forgot about this slide. We could do WatchOS management now. That didn't take me like 2 minutes to do, but now we can do WatchOS stuff. So if you care about WatchOS device management stuff, if I was prepared, I would have more than one slide. I wasn't. Go to that Apple link there for the session, and it will tell you more.
What the hell company issues watches?
Exactly. Yes. And then if you listen to, if you're like siding with Steve about the fact that managed IDs are useless, just go and get more drinks, because essentially that's all I'm talking about next. So thanks for staying into that.
In my org.
Yeah, no, maybe this will change your mind.
Exactly, right?
But
You're gonna have to face up to them some days, too.
But Apple have really expanded the magic bodies, and they will become much more useful as some of these things going. The main thing it hinges on is the fact that with Managed Apple IDs, you can use iCloud Keychain. Woo! But this kind of is like a gateway thing into other things. So the first gateway thing, which I'm sure that Graham's really excited about, is continuity.
Yeah.
This is your handoff stuff. This is the using your iPad as a screen, sidecar. Yeah, there's one. Write a text message on one device, picking up on the other. Those type of things. But by having the iCloud keychain, it allows that connectivity to be available. So also, the next thing Graham's really excited about is the Apple Wallet. It's stuff that comes with this as well, because it's the same type of thing. You can now use your same details across multiple devices. So if you're using iCloud keychain, wallet stuff for like door passes and those type of things, then actually you can use them across your Managed Apple IDs now. But really burying the lead here, the most important thing is going to be passkeys. But what are passkeys? Well, passkeys aim to make all of your accounts more secure by using password as login in place of traditional passwords, since each passkey is a unique digital key that can't be reused. They're also stored in an encrypted format on your devices instead of a company's servers, which keeps them safe in the event of a data breach. I just realised, am I an age thing where I had to read the big screen for that text rather than right in front of me? That was just
Take that.
Passkeys are a very important evolution in the way that folks authenticate to services.
That last statement were false.
But that was my research. It's not your name on it, so you're okay. But if you want to know more, talk to Graham.
They're stored in iCloud keychain. They are definitely stored on a company servers.
Yes.
Graham's guide.
So with iCloud Keychain, they're now stored on company servers. Like not like he's like ruining the stuff. But Apple go into great detail about this.
They're encrypted by your secure enclave, aren't they? That's where the
They're still on the
Magic.
servers.
No, secure enclave is by
encryption keys are in there, and then they
SEP doesn't.
holds the key.
The secure enclave. So the whole idea of securing your passkeys secure enclave is great, but what is the different mechanism now? You can share them across multiple devices when you've got iCloud Keychain, because that might change a little bit, maybe. But this is the big thing that came with the passkey side of things.
Are they stored on the servers?
Well, Apple have a whole talk about it if you want to know more. There's a theme here. Going through this though, some of the key points that they talk about, the idea about passkeys is there's no attempts of phishing, because the authentication is on that device and those type of tokens. You're not going to have those MFA prompts again and again and again that people at 2 o'clock in the morning just press a button and suddenly the orgs hacks, which happened recently with several orgs. The servers themselves, there should be the username and password type details stored on a server. So there is a level of acceptance of the credential, but actually they should be able to go to a central source to grab the credentials and then grab everybody else's, that type of thing. And the idea is a great user experience. The plan is here is you're not going to need a username and a password. You're not going to need a username, password, and an MFA token. You're not going to get that prompt. The idea is it makes it quite seamless. Well, the videos within this talk, Apple will show you that basically someone's just using Face ID, Touch ID, that type of mechanism. One kind of thing of bam, they're in. So that's that simplification for the user. Again, the way that they want you to use this to manage it at work is to use Managed Apple IDs and control the syncing of passkeys, we're going to talk about in a sec, as well as requiring passkey creation on managed devices. So there's different ways that happen with this, and this is where Apple talk about other mechanisms they're bringing in place. So, for example, to actually make sure that passkeys are only made on managed devices, they actually used DDM, Declarative Device Management, and also the attestation framework. So all this new stuff that Apple are bringing in the past, last year and this year now, all starts to come together. Is the device in this state? Let us know when the device changes this state. Let's double check to make sure the device really is that secure. So make sure, and you can set this up to make sure your passkeys are only created on those devices that are actually managed. And then proving to those reliant parties, again, the attestation, etc., to make sure that the device is definitely managed, not some user's device, not some user's device they manage that way. It literally is a properly MDM managed device. And then allowing it to be stored within iCloud Keychain on managed accounts. So again, that whole thing of that trust but verify again and again and again. Going back to the original stuff, to do more managed IPs, Apple have also added additional restrictions and things as well. And I think Darren just alluded to this in the last one. What you can with an Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager going forward, you'll have options here about allowing managed Apple IDs on any device, a managed device, or a supervised device only. This is because your identity for your managed Apple ID is stored within your ABM ASM instance. So any device, obviously guess what that is, supervised, we all know. Managed devices, we'll talk about that in a second, what Apple seems to define as. Similarly with iCloud, etc. So this is iCloud using the managed Apple ID, by the way, not just an MDM function. So Apple are really giving us more functionality through Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager to manage these managed Apple IDs.
But at the moment, this isn't all on. I think you can't group this. This is for all devices.
Yeah, this is, and this is also. I don't think it's even in beta yet. This was in the above talk and the link there. So, no NDA problems. It's fine. But yeah, this should be in beta within Apple Business Manager, Apple School Manager. So it's an org level thing. So the managed Apple ID will be tied. So it will be in that Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager instance, and it's the rule set from there.
Yeah,
which is for everybody. Yeah, it seems to be.
Yeah.
This ties in up with what Apple are calling a couple of things. So first of all, you've got the user-driven account enrollment stuff. This is someone using a managed Apple ID to enroll a device. So your BYOD stuff, iOS device is coming to macOS as well with Sonoma, and you're about to enroll your device, have that separation of management and a separation of data. So it's my personal stuff, you're good, and they manage the personal stuff. You leave your managed Apple ID is terminated, whatever, your work data gets removed from that managed Apple ID container as such. But what's also happening, Apple are bringing in device-based enrollment. So we talked, actually Darren talked a minute ago about profile-based enrollment of devices. And if you're a Jamf admin, user-initiated enrollment type stuff, someone go to a web page and plug in the details and enroll, this will replace it. So you log in with a managed Apple ID. So this instead gives you more control over the whole device, like that older mechanisms, like the older profile-based enrollment. But again, it's tied to the user's managed Apple ID. So when you hit those type of rule sets, if you're doing a user-based, user-driven account enrollment or device-based enrollment, whatever it is, I should have studied. But they'll fall into that managed category. So you've got the home device, you've got the managed ones because they're enrolled using maids, and then you've got your supervised. And that's what Apple are basically pointing us to with those. And the last kind of bit on this round as well. Steve mentioned this earlier actually as well. Yeah, that's all right. You didn't completely ruin my talk, just most of it. You mentioned the fact that you can't use SSO provider, etc., around with your managed Apple IDs, and it's coming. This is it. Yeah. So currently, at the moment, which is what currently means, so I don't know why we say that. Been a long day. You can federate with Azure and Google, etc., and have that type of thing. But instead, you're actually going to use your IDP as an auth source for your managed Apple IDs. So Okta apparently is going to be the first provider, they mentioned it in the talk, but even your custom IDPs could be used. So this might mean that actually your managed Apple ID side of things, because there's provisioning, deprovisioning, skin type stuff, OIDC connect, so OpenID connector, OIDC connections, the rest of it. It might become another app in your IDP. When you assign someone the app, they log in and they'll get a managed Apple ID created. And something that uses dual security from your IDP. That should make things a bit simpler for you to manage them going forward. Especially when you've got your joiner, mover, leaver process, etc., built into your IDP, all that good stuff. It's actually me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, I blitzed through that. I hope that was actually no, I didn't. I'm bang on time. You may be late, but I'm bang on time. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, this is now the Q&A bit. Yes.
One quick question. Unlike school managed Apple IDs, it's still only 5 GB for iCloud, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen that mentioned.
Yeah. I hadn't seen it either, so I don't know if it changed maybe, but yeah.
No, I didn't see that mentioned on my commute up here when I
They want
What
to
seems to be
have
that
business
one?
essentials.
Become a business.
We're at the Apple Seed thing at Apple a couple of weeks ago, and they confirmed that it is still only 5 gig.
File
I
feedback.
know file feedback, yeah.
File feedback.
Which reduces the DLP risk one.
Per person.
Cool.
Anything else? Has anybody got anything else, or should we like turn off the stream and
Just go
ask some dodgy questions afterwards?
Do we have a list of ID providers that are going to be supporting this?
It's open standard. It just seems like Okta are the first one that have worked with Apple and said we're definitely going to do it day one, but it should be. Well, what they're saying is it should just almost be like another app that you add within your IDP. So
It should be trivial.
It was going to be,
Yeah.
it was OIDC
OIDC
and
is-
Skim.
That doesn't
Yeah.
really.
So any IDP that supports OIDC and Skim.
So as you're not.
Yeah.
If your IDP already supports
Out, yeah.
OIDC, it already supports it.
It'd be very rare if you've got an IDP that isn't supporting those standards.
If your IDP does not support OIDC, you should find new IDP.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
Well, we'll probably do that.
We should probably find.
Entra. You're with Entra. The mics are really good, Mia, just remember. Also realised because they're massive. It's a huge one.
You have community involvement. You want to have.
Ben, there's some handheld ones behind you if you want,
Nah, it's more fun.
This.
and then you come out the speakers.
So we've got a little bit at the end here. Going to wrap up the stream first, but first of all, thank you for coming. It'd be great to see everyone. Yeah, been awesome. Thank you for coming.